Rachel Herries from University of Glasgow, who has a lot of experience in the field of research culture, how to change it, how to improve it. Rachel, the floor is yours.
So thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me to come and present and share with you today. So my talk is on a positive research culture and taking a partnership approach. So I'm going to share my experience as a member of the University of Glasgow, and the Scottish and the UK kind of context is my experience, and share my perspective of kind of the drivers shaping a positive research culture, the importance of looking at research culture not in isolation, but so that it's fully embedded, so it's and sustainable, and thinking about kind of the power of partnership and community. So kind of drawing very much on some of the conversations that we've already heard this morning, and thank you to those speakers, and then linking hopefully to what we're also going to hear this afternoon in terms of kind of those stakeholders' role for fostering positive research culture and the panel discussion as well. So while I share what I know and my experiences, I'm really interested to hear from yourselves about how the approach that I share can be evolved, and hear about practice that's happening within your organisations to share, and so that we can adopt those and take that learning as well. So whether that's in the questions or whether that's through the panel later on, it'd be really interesting to hear that. Okay, so I thought I'd start with research culture at the University of Glasgow. So the way we define research culture is it's a collective result of the way we think, we feel, and we act. And it's this cycle of kind of the product of our behaviours, but also then it influences our behaviours. So it's this cyclical process. And really, it's a good culture drives forward high engagement, productivity, sustainability, well-being, trust, and ultimately really great research. So while there's numerous ways that research culture can be defined, one of the reasons we have a definition for it is as a guiding principle and as a reference point, and to bring clarity for ourselves as the people that are kind of leading forward in the research culture space at the University of Glasgow, but also for our community, so that when we say, come and listen to hear about research culture, they know what we're talking about. So we have a statement to refer back to, and it brings that structure and that clarity reference for us. Ooh. Is it going to change? So, I also thought it'd be helpful to hear the setting where I sit within the university. So I'm the research culture manager. I sit within research services, and I'm part of the research culture and researcher development kind of portfolio. And so we are a team, made up of two teams that ensure that every member of the research ecosystem is supported to be at their best and to be part of an engaging, fair and collegial environment, and that we're all supporting each other to succeed, not only in our research, but also in our careers, and being able to make informed decisions about our careers going forward. And we've already heard about research ecosystem. What I should say here by research ecosystem, I'm talking about every member, so researchers and our research professional staff. And for me, that's really important because there's different contributors to the research ecosystem and different contributors to research. And so we refer to it as members of the research ecosystem. Please connect with us. We're keen to learn. So please I've left all the contact details at the end of the presentation. Please connect with the full team. We're really interested to hear and share and be open with our resources and initiatives. So please do get in touch. So, like I said, I've kind of split this into three themes. So starting with the first theme of kind of drivers that are shaping the concept of a positive research culture. And this is in terms of its kind of internal and external drivers that have either already shaped it or that are continuing to evolve and shape the concept of what is a positive research culture and the work that's going on. So I wanted to share both from a University of Glasgow perspective, but then also what's happening in the wider UK setting as well, and kind of walk through those drivers. So starting with the University of Glasgow, we have our World Changes Together, which is our university kind of strategy. So as a university, looking to be transformational and looking to bring world changers, a community of world changers together. We've then got the University of Glasgow research strategy, which is themed around collaboration, creativity, and careers. And the statement there is from that strategy. So, working in teams, building on each other's ideas, and making Glasgow the best place to develop research, but also develop as careers. And the strategy kind of builds on the principles that the quality of our research is valued over the quantity, and that university succeeds when everybody is succeeding, and that we value all the contributions. And this really then links into what we have, our 5 research culture priorities, which act in service to our research strategy. And our 5 priorities are research recognition, collegiality, research integrity, open research, and career development. And so the culture priorities are more about the how we achieve our successes, and the how we do our research, and the how we support that. And so they are kind of then linked up. And I think when it comes to kind of bringing it back to the clarity, when I go and speak to colleagues within the university, it's showcasing how everything is connected together. These research culture priorities aren't on the side. They're built in to connect with our research strategy and then the university strategy as well. So looking at our culture priorities in a little bit more detail, just for some context. So we've got collegiality, so thinking about the way we lead, the way we interact, the way we communicate and collaborate. We've got career development, which is supporting everyone to advance their careers, so everybody within that research ecosystem. We've got research recognition, so looking at the recognizing, valuing different contributors and contributions to research. Research integrity, having a framework that supports the highest standard of research, quality, trusted research. And then open research, so supporting the transparency, openness, verification, reproducibility, and again, supporting a wide range of varied research outputs. So those are the principles, and in practice, what we have are 3 teams leading across those 5 priorities. So my team, the research culture team, lead on collegiality, career development, and research recognition. But we have the research governance and integrity team leading on research integrity, and we have the research information management team leading on open research. And so this is an approach. My role's only a couple of years old, and this is a new approach to kind of bring those 3 teams together to have a collaborative approach going forward to achieve what we want, our ambitions underneath the 5 culture priorities. We also have fairly newly appointed academic leads in good research practice and in inclusive research. So again, bringing a collaborative approach to the work that we're undertaking. To help break down the priorities, maybe make them more practical, some of them have been broken into work streams. So we have, for example, Pathfinder, which is the umbrella name for all our career initiatives. We have specific work on principal investigators, research leaders, to kind of drive forward work that we want to do in that area. We've got a specific work stream on our research professional staff to bring in kind of recognition and career development for them, and I'll come to that later. And we have a work stream focused on kind of engagement, so again, bringing in that awareness piece and making sure that everyone's voice is heard and included within discussions and decision making. So all of this is then included and pulled together into our Research Culture Action Plan, which is actually due for renewal in 2025. So we're just embarking on a consultation and review of that currently. So again, going out to the community to see what's worked, what's needs improved, what's happened. Since the first Research Culture Action Plan was written, a lot has changed in the sector. There's been significant evolution, and we've had COVID as well. So there's been this one. I think the new Research Culture Action Plan will look different, and to kind of accommodate that change. But all of this, again, is aligning to the research strategy. So it's connecting to those other policies. So moving on to, still sticking with the University of Glasgow, but kind of taking a little bit of a step back and looking at some of the other drivers that are are influencing and have informed our direction of work and our priorities, if you like. So the University of Glasgow is committed to or signatories of things such as the Concordat to support research integrity, the Concordat of open research data, Concordat to support the career development of researchers, as well as kind of signatories to DORA, or we've got credit, so looking at that assessment of the way we assess research, the way we acknowledge contributions to outputs, for example. So these are all different commitments that the university is making underneath the banner of kind of culture, and they've all got their different priorities. And then we've got the technicians' commitment as well, for example. We've then got other drivers, such as strategy papers that have come out that have kind of set the scene for things within the UK setting. So the UK Research and Development People and Culture Strategy was a paper that's been published that kind of states about taking a collective approach to research culture enhancement. We've then got funders such as the Wellcome, we've got UK Research and Innovation, so UKRI, again, putting out papers, putting out strategy that is including that focus on research culture. And then we've got networks similar to what's been already mentioned earlier that we're involved in, so the UK Reproducibility Network and the UK Research Integrity Office, just as a couple of examples of networks where we've got decisions and conversations going on that are then feeding into what drives a positive research culture and the concept of that at the University of Glasgow. And I think for me what's important here is across the university we have people working on these different areas, but they do align, they do resonate together, and it's about connecting those, aligning that work, and not doing them in isolation, because they're all drivers for change that we can use to kind of activate change. So taking a step away from directly from the University of Glasgow and coming to the kind of UK setting, if you like, one of the big topics of conversation currently is the Research Excellence Framework, so REF, which is the system in the UK to assess the quality of research. And feeds into the allocation and accountability of public funding. And the next exercise is in 2029, and it's assessed across 3 themes. So engagement and impact, contribution to knowledge and understanding, and then people, culture and environment. And the big change that's happened for this forthcoming exercise is that was previously environment, and it's shifted to people, culture and environment. So the inclusion of culture worded in there, and also there's been a change to the weighting. So from 15% previously to now having a more 25% in terms of the assessment. And the rationale behind this is that a thriving and inclusive research culture is an essential dimension of research excellence. The conversations that are going on, which are extremely interesting, are about actually how does this play out? So with the People, Culture and Environment Indicators project is currently happening, and there's conversations going on across the sector about what's valued, how do we make this robust, how do we assess this, how do we assess across the different institutions in the actual REF exercise, and how is it feasible to scale that up, ready for REF 2029. And the University of Glasgow definitely, like a lot of universities in the UK, are kind of engaged in these conversations, wanting to share our perspective, our experience and understanding of what people, culture and environment might mean. And this has included, for example, going out for institutional consultations, so an institution being able to share their kind of stance. There's been indicator workshops on the different themes that might come under people and culture and environment, bringing together people from across the sector, individual surveys that people can submit on their own, and then what we're about to embark on, and the University of Glasgow is a participant in this, is what's called the PCE pilot, so a mock exercise of submitting to that PCE element of the Research Excellence Framework. And this is a test bed. It's a risk-free space. It's not attached to any allocation of funding. It's a space to actually test out what has come out of those consultations and understand what is it feasible to assess the people, culture and environment element, and how is that going to work? For me, this is a big driver. It's shifting some conversations. It's pushing some conversations to make us consider some really challenging conversations like the data side of things, which I'll come on to later. What are the indicators? What's the evidence that we can use to measure that impact and the progress made. So lots happening on the Research Excellence Framework front. I also wanted to share another kind of sector-wide kind of piece in the UK, which has been the Research Culture Framework. So this was commissioned by the UK Research and Innovation, so UKRI, to review the kind of the current state of culture activities in the UK. And this was in response to that people culture strategy about that collective approach to research culture enhancement. And the resulting kind of outcome from that review was this framework that is around 4 themes. It's now a kind of strategic kind of piece. So the themes of how research is managed, how research ensures value, how people are supported, and how individuals engage with others. So it spans those 4 themes, and it's got 13 descriptors. And really, this again is a driver. So it's not providing one definition, but it's providing a scope for people, depending on the lens that they're coming from or the perspective that they're coming from, to use this information to then help form a definition or form kind of a target reference point. And it's focused on kind of behaviors and values. So again, it's something that the community can utilize to kind of move forward in the research culture space. I briefly wanted to speak about funding because there has been a change in the funding landscape in terms of the research culture, and both from in terms of culture-focused funds, but then also culture being embedded in research grant funding. And just 2 examples here of 2 research culture funding calls that have happened. So Research England, again in response to that people and culture strategy, provided funding for institutions to be able to develop initiatives and activities that responded to that call for action. I mean, we've then got Welcome, who have a fund that's kind of £1 million upwards for the projects, looking at advancing culture that focuses on inclusive, open, engaged, and ethical, equitable research. So again, another research culture focused funding pot. And the University of Glasgow, in collaboration with Edinburgh and St Andrews, received some of that Welcome funding to do a project that's focused on looking at a collegial research leadership framework. So recognizing that a skilled collegial approach to leadership is kind of critical for that kind of movement forward and to have that supportive culture. And within this, there's a fund, the Research Culture Catalyst Fund, which is for anybody within the research ecosystem to be a PI. So it doesn't have to be a researcher. Anybody can come forward with what they see as a research enhancement project. So this was only launched, project only started in September. The fund was launched this week, so it's all very new. So there's a lot of kind of exciting, interesting activity to come under that, see what funding applications come in and from who. But part of that is also acknowledging the need for community and peer-to-peer engagement and support. So part of the fund is, the project is also a kind of a community knowledge hub. So stepping away from kind of research culture focus funding and looking at research culture that's embedded in research grants, we've, again, just 2 examples here of where research culture has become an element of these funds. So the Medical Research Council and the Wellcome Discovery Award are 2 funding opportunities. And for the MRC, so the Centre of Research Excellence, there's the Research Culture Maturity Model, which applicants need to fill in across these themes, looking at how their objectives and their expectations span from awareness level all the way to optimized in terms of and what they're wanting to achieve through that fund. For the Wellcome Discovery Award, research environment is 25%, and part of that is that the applicants need to state what has their prior contributions been to a positive research culture, and what do they plan to do during their fund, their bid, in that space. So for me, this is really interesting, and it's a new element of my role because we've got researchers coming to us to help interpret what does this mean. what does it mean in terms of the central provisions that we have over in research culture kind of umbrella, but also what does it mean in terms of what they're doing at their local level, at their granular level? Where are the examples of great practice that they can build on? Or what are the research culture practices that they want to adopt at their local level that they can do through funds, through their bids that they're applying for? So for me, this is really exciting because it's opening up conversations that we might not have had previously because it's included in those bids. And I think part of that is about making sure that the applicants feel confident in what they're submitting underneath that research culture piece. So a last piece in this kind of first theme of kind of what the drivers that are shaping positive research culture. And this is just to flag that kind of a community movement, if you like. So myself and my colleague Kay Guccioni attended this unnamed research culture event in July this year. And it was kind of felt like a start of a movement around this. And it was about, do we need an entity? Do we need something that we can utilize or that the community can utilize to empower people around research culture and to foster that kind of positive, healthy research culture? So a bit like how we have DORA, you know, to say that's not in the spirit of DORA. Is there something that's not in the spirit of X? And this only happened in July. It's very new, but the conclusions from that was that there's a lot of work going on. There's a lot of great work going on that we can build on. There's people that are engaged and there's other people that can come on board. And this touches on some of the conversations we've had earlier, is that it is challenging. And for some people, you know, those that are experiencing poor behavior or practice, how do we act on that to call it out and to foster that change? And also looking at that it's not that top-down approach. Everybody needs to be involved to kind of move this forward. So just wanted to flag an example of kind of a community coming together to kind of take stock of the situation and consider, a bit like what we're doing this afternoon, what's needed and where can we take this forward and how do we take this forward importantly. So just to wrap up this section, what you can see is there's a lot going on, and I haven't mentioned all of the different networks and initiatives that are happening, but a lot going forward, a lot of options for driving forward that people can draw on to activate change, that as an institution can draw on, or that different institutions can draw on. And that can support people to find that clarity about what research culture is for them and that definition that can help kind of take that focused approach. So moving on to kind of my second theme, which is around research culture not being in isolation, but kind of it needs to be fully adopted and embedded to really foster change. And I wanted to just provide 3 examples of areas of needs that I think need attention to kind of support and foster that change going forward. So the first being data, so research culture data. And like I said previously, that the research excellence framework and that people, culture, and environment element, I think will push this conversation forward because we're going to need indicators and evidence. But what do we mean by research culture data? What is it? So we might have culture data that is this overall data that's gained from targeted research culture surveys, for example. Or there might be intentional data from consultations or evaluation. So the consultation, we've gone out and we've engaged with the community and we've got information and data from them. Or we've evaluated a research culture initiative or a development program that aligns with our research culture work. So it's intentional, designed, kind of there's a method to it, kind of data. We've then got the narrativeless data. So the data that might be around us, that we might have access to, or we might not have access to yet, that's not been gained with this kind of research culture banner, but that could be really powerful, useful data for us to have insight of and to utilize. And there's probably a lot of this data around, but how do we activate it? How do we get access to it? And then there's kind of the anecdotal data, so maybe the information that people share with you or that you get through communities that might not feel like data, but it's information that can be very powerful and can inform kind of the conversation and the discussions. So what is the data is kind of one of the challenges here, and how do we have access to it? And the questions are kind of, what's the variety? What are the sources? Is it open? Who owns it? Who has control of it? Who can share it? And how can we make that data transparent and accessible and kind of useful for it to inform the progress made or the journey traveled in the research culture kind of space? And all of this is the reason to be looking at the data, and the reason I've put it in here as a need is that we need to determine methods for evaluation of research culture, to understand progress made, and to make informed decisions. And we can't do this in isolation. There's different owners of the data, there's different owners of processes that by coming together, we'll then be able to activate this data and become the researchers ourselves and do things more effectively by being together. So awareness is my second kind of theme here, which is awareness is key to ensuring that everybody within the ecosystem knows about research culture, and maybe how do we resonate with everybody in this ecosystem, I think is one of the challenges going forward. And how do we start building that awareness? So Research Culture Roadshow is one of the initiatives that we've implemented this year, which is about going out to the community, going beyond an online community, which, since COVID, we have a lot of online communities, and taking the information visibly to our research ecosystem, and importantly, giving them an opportunity to come and share and speak with us. So it's just one example of how we're trying to make culture more visible. But for me, awareness, communication is the challenge. And then my third piece here is recognition for all, and really in the importance that we recognize everybody within the research ecosystem and everybody's role and contribution. So I wanted to share one of the initiatives that has been established recently at Glasgow, which is the Research Professional Staff Network. And this is self-identified staff who are research professionals, and this is a community for them and a space for them to be coming together. And it's through wide consultation with that community. We have kind of created an action plan of what are their needs, what do they want, and I'll share that with you in a second. But importantly, this is then also driven by them, so it's a community created for them and run by them. So there's an executive committee of research professional staff that kind of can drive this forward. So it's not being done to them, it's being done with them. And the highlight for me, for this network this year was the conference that was all about becoming and excelling as a research professional staff member and the kind of what they bring to the research environment. And we've got a blog piece about that that can share more details. But I wanted to share the kind of themes for the action plan only because this could be for researchers. But it's, researchers want better networking opportunities, spotlights on kind of how to do things, workshops and opportunities, information about careers, peer-to-peer learning and training, visibility. So we maybe do this for some of our researchers already, and our research professional staff, who are a key part of our research ecosystem, are also looking for that support to excel and be the best that they can be in the environment, our research environment. So my last section is on partnership and community approach and the importance of that and fostering a positive research culture. And I think kind of linking to what I just said in terms of it's important that initiatives aren't done to people, that they're generated by the community, driven by the community, and then hopefully embedded and resonate with those communities for them to be sustainable going forward. So again, I wanted to just give a couple of examples of how we're trying to adopt this at Glasgow to make this a community-led approach. So we have our Lab for Academic Culture, which is kind of our expert steer group, bringing experts together from across the whole university that are there to kind of maintain and develop and focus on the enhancement of our research culture initiatives. It's about bringing connectivity across the university in terms of the people. It's about bringing connectivity in terms of the projects that people might be leading on, kind of reducing duplication. bringing kind of that value to the research culture and bringing that message so people can share and be informed about research culture. So again, increasing the identity and awareness of what research culture is and our priorities and the work that goes underneath that. So that's the Lab for Academic Culture, and that's kind of one approach, if like at one end of it in terms of our partnership approach. At the other side, we have the Culture Commons, which is for everybody and anybody within the research ecosystem. So this is currently a team space, a Microsoft team space, that anybody can join, anybody that's interested in building a positive research culture. And the idea is to bring people together in a safe space where they can connect, share, have conversations, challenge information, get resources, find out about the culture priorities, but also find out what's happening in the sector underneath this kind of banner of research culture. And we're doing this with the community rather than to the community. So we do this with our Culture Commons co-leads, who are kind of our champions, our advocates for research culture. So currently we have 96, and their role is really to kind of foster those conversations and really be those, I like the word earlier, the guardians of kind of research culture. And this connects to that Research Culture Roadshow, so we've got an online space and then we have that physical space as well, so bringing that community together. Yeah, so I also wanted to share, in terms of the kind of the power of kind of community, is the idea of specific communities. So we have our research staff assembly, so our research staff, so maybe early career researchers, postdocs, depending on the language you use. And acknowledging that this community is ever-changing, it's expansive, it's diverse. The Research Staff Assembly is moving away from maybe the more traditional reps network, so representatives and having those key few that are engaged and then take the message back to their local environment. This is about making a space that anybody can come to and be informed and have their voice shared. So again, there's two ways of engaging in it. There's a Microsoft Teams space, so that platform for bringing people together. But then there's also a hybrid kind of monthly assembly where researchers can come and they can be informed about something, a topic that's relevant to them, but then they can also have their say and tell us what they think. And then that's how we're capturing their thoughts, their conversations, and consulting with them. So this Research Staff Assembly has been running for just over a year, and some of the themes that we've taken to them are things like promotions, recognition, authorship, open research. What are their thoughts? What do they need to know in that space? And my final piece on kind of, last two slides, kind of partnerships, is actually how we do this as a whole institution. So you'll see there the little blue bubbles are the research culture priorities, and we've got the research strategy there in purple. That's research culture. We're one small element of the wider university culture. And our focus is on the way we do research and the way we support research careers. And this is at the intersection with our colleagues who are the experts and leads and responsible for things that cover the whole university culture, like EDI, like engagement, like performance and pay. And so it's about making sure that we are aligned together to support that clarity of approach, that clarity of responsibility, and that kind of progressing forward. So final slide, and kind of wrapping up, is my kind of conclusions on shaping a positive research culture. So everyone needs to be involved to kind of activate and adopt change. We do need to start looking at the data so that we can understand how we are progressing. Communication and awareness is key. Resourcing and practical solutions should be done in collaboration. It's alignment, the power of togetherness, if you like. And we should build on what's already great. So there's already a lot of great work going on centrally, locally, sector-wide. Let's know about that so that we can build on that. So yeah, greater together, there's value and strength in partnerships. And focus and clarity can really activate and power change. And thank you very much. I look forward to answering any questions and also connecting with you afterwards.
Thanks. Bert Seers from Belgium and NRIO.
Hi.
Wow.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
I'm speechless.
I mean, it's not just me.
No. I was well aware that Netherlands was paving the way in research integrity, but now you really persuaded me that UK is leading the way in terms of research culture. Mm-hmm. I guess your presentation has answered the how and what of that we were left with the three last presentations about research culture. So thanks a lot. I wanted to say that. I do have a silly question. If some researcher comes to you who wants to apply for the Wellcome Trust and doesn't know how to fill in this point about culture, what about these conversations? Have you seen changes in people's mindset? Have you been able to see some change or inflict some change that you're happy with?
Yeah, so I think it's about having the conversation and helping people broaden their understanding of how they interpret culture. So they might have a great idea, but it's saying, well, actually, this connects to recognition. It could connect to careers, or you could bring that in, and you've written that piece of initiative for your researchers. Why not bring it to your research professionals as well? Or how about we bring that and shape it into kind of an opportunity for kind of dual learning, so your PhD students and your research staff, for example. So I think it's more about helping take people on a bit more of a journey in terms of interpreting that. And the response is positive because we're helping them kind of strengthen their applications. I don't think they're coming with a blank piece of paper. That's never been the case for myself. But it's about how to kind of elevate that and align it for Glasgow with the 5 culture priorities and say, this is our themes. How have you thought about these as additional points? Yeah.
Hi, Ruth Moran from the Atlantic Technological University. God, guys, you're doing fantastic work at the University of Glasgow. Unbelievable. But we in Ireland had been very lucky because we had a member from the University of Glasgow attending our National Research Integrity Forum Community of Practice. You mentioned there, the staff development network, the research culture labs. I know that's been in existence for a long period of time. And the research culture champions, productive partnerships, the list goes on. My question is basically, from an institutional perspective, what were the biggest challenges on getting the institutional leadership buy-in? And I'm going to be a cheeky Irish girl here. It's a 2-part question. Mm-hmm. What were the biggest strategies, or what were the strategies that were literally used to overcome them? You mentioned there as well that REF 2029, we're all, from an Irish perspective, we're looking at REF and looking at the implementation of REF 2029. You mentioned there the culture was 25% of it. How do you feel from a university perspective, not just from the University of Glasgow, but from a national perspective? Are the institutions actually buying into REF 2029? They have to have implemented a research integrity statement, an annual one. Are they actually buying into it? And are there challenges with REF 29? Thanks for the presentation.
Yes, okay. No, thank you. So I'll come to the strategic one first. So I think kind of going back to that first point of, one of my first points is in terms of aligning it with the strategy that's there. So and breaking it down is definitely some of the approaches that we've taken. So for example, we've got the research strategy and they had the ambitions underneath that. So then taking what we've got, a talent lab, for example, which I haven't shared today, which is our research, our leadership provisions, and saying how does that map to the ambitions of the research strategy, and saying that by doing this aligns with this strategy and forward. So I think that is really powerful because it's helping making the connections for people already and helping make the connections and showcase the value in that for whether it's kind of the ripple effect of kind of the people that will actually be, for example, going on that training, if it's a training piece, and then what's the subsequent impact of that. So it's going to improve them as a line manager or as a principal investigator, which is going to then have that ripple on the group and kind of the representation of Glasgow, if you like. So I think aligning to strategy, showcasing the connections for people is how to get that buy-in at that strategic piece. In terms of the ref question, from the conversations I've been involved in, I think people are taking it seriously in terms of the people, culture and environment element. They're wanting to get it right. They're wanting to make sure that it's robust and that it's feasible and that it's actually achievable for not only the institutions, but actually the units of assessment, so the school level, because I think that's, I can tell you what's happening at the institutional level in terms of from my team, but actually what we're going to need to be doing is supporting our deans of research, our heads of school, to actually talk about what's the culture and the identity of the culture at their local level for those units of assessment. And I think that making sure that there's the support, the resource and understanding to make that local level work is going to be key. So I think that the conversations are ongoing, and I think that shows the seriousness that they're taking, if you like. Does that answer the two questions? Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for this amazing talk, and yeah, what the two previous questions also add. I think I'm gonna sort of add up to what you said. So when it comes to evaluating or measuring research culture, I was wondering, how do you think we should or could be dealing with power imbalances within departments or cultures, especially if you think about the scenarios that Yuri sketched this morning about if there's one very toxic professor, and if that's also tied, for example, to funding or continuing a career. It's like, how should we deal with that?
Well, I think I don't think I have the answer to that, but I think I can suggest kind of things like how to empower, how to create safe spaces for people to come and break away from their maybe toxic environment, to share their experiences so that other people can support that change. And then one of the initiatives that we have, which I haven't shared, which is People Make Research, which is going against that kind of focusing on the negative, and it's sharing the positive in terms of the supervisory line management experience. So having people nominate the people that have been in that supervisory role and showcase that example of good practice, and having that shared and showcased, I think shows actually what is good practice, what is maybe then becoming expected. And that's a really good mechanism to say, actually, this is what is happening in my neighbouring group. So how can we then have that conversation about making that work within my local group and my local area, and having mentoring or support, mentoring or kind of, yeah, those safe spaces to kind of help people tackle that challenge. Yeah.
Giulia Inguaggiato from Amsterdam University Medical Center. Thank you so much for your inspiring talk. I have a more practical question, because you listed a quite long list of initiatives that bring people together talking about research culture in different ways. And my question is, how do you encourage people to join these meetings, these conversations, and how do you get the conversation started?
Okay, so how we encourage them to join is by going and doing putting the energy in to go and engaging. So whether it's going to academic meetings, whether it's going to different committees, and having that kind of going and speaking at all different levels. And so it's not just those senior committees, it's any group that's willing to have us come and share kind of our overview of what the culture or initiatives are, to say this is what's available to you, come and engage. And sharing that the Culture Commons is available is one of as that kind of safe space to have those conversations is one of the pieces there. Also having, across the team, we have different, what we call them roundups, so newsletters to again share, and they're targeted at different audiences so that the message hopefully resonates a bit better than it just being a generic newsletter. So going to a newsletter that goes to our research professionals or our research staff or our PGRs to share and inform them about current initiatives that are happening. And then starting the conversation is, I think, putting in prompts, putting in, so saying that there's this, there's this new resource, or there's this new event that's happening. Do you want to have a conversation about it? But actually what we're finding is that the community is talking, and we haven't got the whole of the University of Glasgow in the Culture Commons. So that's, we've got a long way to go. It's not the whole community. But that is there, and having it split across the 5 culture priorities as well. So there's space if you're more focused on integrity or more focused on career development, you can go to that dedicated channel to kind of get what you require at that time. So really encouraging people to come forward, and yeah, I think that was. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.